Let's go ahead and get started. I am Julie Evans. In case I haven't met you, I am a fellow mom in the Alamo Heights School District. My son Ben is in the 7th grade at the junior school, and I'm subbing in for Michelle today because I asked Allison to come speak to us because I have just been really impressed with her and really wanted to share her knowledge with all of you. But we are lucky enough to have 2 speakers today. Our first speaker, and she just shared this with me, she is an Alamo Heights graduate. Yay, go Mules. She is Nikki Young. She is Morgan Wonderland's Inclusion Foundation's, I'm going to say this wrong, edutainment director. And I know that all of us are so excited about the camp that is being built right now. And so she is going to give us a quick update on how that is going and what that looks like and when we can get our kids in, right? Okay, Nikki, I will let you take it.
Thank you so much. So as you heard, I went to Alamo Heights, so I'm very happy and excited to visit with all of you guys. And so my role at Morgan's Wonderland is correct, edutainment director. So I've actually been part of the Wonderland family for 8 years. We used to have a school, the Academy, the Monarch and then Academy, and I was over there, and I used to have a summer camp program. I think Ben actually might have gone for one summer. And so now moving over to the park, that word camp is now a bigger part of what we do. So we are actually opening the Morgan's Wonderland camp about 20 miles from, 20 minutes away from Morgan's Wonderland, the park. So if you're not familiar with Morgan's Wonderland, we are located at Thousand Oaks and Wurzbach Parkway. We've actually celebrated our 10-year in 2020, but we're trying to kind of expand that celebration this year. And we've expanded that to Morgan's Wonderland Inclusion Foundation and those entities, what is included in those. So I have a little video I'm going to show. It's 30 seconds. It's actually a brand new commercial. It's going to air this weekend. You guys get a sneak peek. So I'm going to share my screen. So it'll explain it just a little bit better, and visually you'll get to see, and then we'll chat. Can you see this okay? Yes, okay.
Imagine if there was a place where everyone was included, regardless of age, ability, and free of economic barriers.
Well, you can ride together.
Where you can splash together. We can fly together.
Where you can play sports together.
There already is.
Join our journey of inclusion at WIF.com. That's MWIF.com.
At Morgan's Wonderland Inclusion Foundation, we make IF happen.
Okay, so that is the Morgan's Wonderland Inclusion Foundation. So now that's kind of the umbrella. So we have all of those entities. We have Morgan's Wonderland Park, Morgan's Inspiration Island, Morgan's Wonderland Sports, Morgan's Wonderland Camp, and soon the Multi-Assistance Center at Morgan's Wonderland, known as the MAC. But what we're here to talk about today specifically, well, let me talk about the park. So we're open weekends only. We had been closed for all of 2020. Well, we were open 11 days, but we opened March 5th. We do have, we've lifted some of the mask restrictions. So only indoors. If you have a child or an individual in your family or your group that feels uncomfortable, I would encourage them to be more outdoors versus indoors in Sensory Village or something until we are able to move into that next phase. And then we have just announced that we are opening Morgan's Inspiration Island, which is our accessible splash pad. It's a great addition to Morgan's Wonderland families. And so we're opening that Saturday of Memorial Weekend. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. And so we'll extend those park hours throughout the summer. We know how hot it gets, so having a water park is a fantastic gift. Then also opening Memorial, Morgan's Wonderland Camp. Everyone is super excited. It's a 100+ acre facility where I like to say where the butterflies and the fireflies come together. So I have not been one in my own experience to be good at camping and outdoorsy. I'm more of a glamper, but I will say, having been going out there a couple times and seeing the growth and the evolution, it's going to be life-changing. I want to show you guys one other clip real quick. So we had, we've been doing some beta testing and some test runs. Valero is our big partner. We are ultra accessible, fully inclusive, but the one phrase that people kind of forget is the nonprofit. We're a nonprofit theme park. All of our destinations, nonprofit. So then how do we get that income in order to, because every individual who walks through our park doors and through our water park doors are always admitted free of charge. Well, then how do we allow ourselves to be operational? We rely on donors and sponsors. So that's why Valero has come in. So I'm going to show you this, some clips. They're raw clips that Valero did that I think will give you guys some indication. And then I'm happy to answer questions and talk about when you guys are able to participate. So let me share the screen. Can you see this okay? Yes, okay. So let me do the zip line.
I'm doing not cold.
You're not cold?
Yeah, I'm not
How you
cold.
feeling?
Fine.
Yeah, feel good? Feel excited?
Yeah.
All right.
So he transferred out of his wheelchair into the zip line here. I know. Oh my gosh. He's so excited. So they
Independent over here. All right. Good.
strap in.
Nice.
As you
Take
can
that down
see.
one, bud.
Good to go up again?
Yep.
Right, good?
Thank you, Devin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's his brother.
Yes. Whoa, yeah, hey. Hey, was that better speed? Yeah?
Yeah, let's go even faster.
All right.
Okay, Scary.
Oh, you're not scared?
No.
All right, bump
Me
it up.
either.
Bump it up, man. Bump it up. 3, 2, 1.
How about that? So I wanted to show that to you guys. That's pretty amazing how they were able to do that. And then we also have a wheelchair challenge that's out at the camp as well, showing you guys this.
Yeah.
Totally accessible obstacle course. Talk about all year long, not just summer camp fun,
You
but
got it,
all
buddy.
year long.
Check it out. Which one's been your favorite so far?
So I wanted to share that with you just to kind of give you guys a little sneak peek. So how this is going to operate is, so starting Memorial Weekend, we have our first campers coming through the door. So right now, for the first couple of weeks, actually up until the fall, it is for groups and organizations. So if you are a camp that needs a space to have camp, you're a vacation Bible school, you are a, another group, another nonprofit, and you have, camp discovery, camp, summer, camp experience, that is available for you guys to book, although the weeks are booking pretty quickly. And then in the fall, they will open it up to groups and families and businesses, etc., to have a gala as an example, or a company retreat, or a family that wants to have a reunion or a get together. So that's what's happening at present. It's going to be pretty spectacular, you guys. Again, 100+ acres. There's archery, there's horseback riding, there's also waterproof wheelchair experiences there as well, with they're having a little river area. My favorite was they have a really cool campfire, to gather around, do s'mores, have some fun. The cabins are fully accessible because you can spend the night there. They have the massive dining hall called Hartman's Hall. Now, when I went into it, I'm going to kind of reveal a little bit of my fandom. If you already didn't know that I'm kind of a dork and a nerd, there's my Star Wars to prove it. And I've got some Harry Potter up there. And so when I went into the hall, it looked like Hogwarts, y'all. It's so big. It's amazing. You feel like just the way that I felt when I first walked into Morgan's Wonderland, and that sense of wonder. And I always get pretty emotional because it was kind of like, oh, wow. Just when I thought Morgan's Wonderland was life-changing, then we opened Inspiration Island, and that was life-changing. The camp is just amazing, you guys, and I can't wait for all of the families in our community and beyond to experience it. And then when we open the sports, so we are doing unified sports programs, and it's just spectacular over there. That's right across the street from Morgan's Wonderland. And then up on the corner, we are building the multi-assistance center. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. So the multi-assistance center at Morgan's Wonderland, which is coordinated care. And it's going to be, think of it as the Mayo Clinic for individuals and families with special needs. One time you have to tell your story, one location that you have to go to. You don't have to be spread around all over the city. Or one of my former students' families, they have to go out of state for a specialist. That's not going to happen anymore. Right here, it's going to be pretty special. And then if you want to stay at the camp, I mean, come on, it's going to be ultra accessible destinations, truly. So that's when making If Happens comes into play. So I want to be able to answer some questions. I showed you guys some stuff. I'm happy to keep talking because I am very passionate about what I do, and I'm very passionate about our world in Wonderland. And if you've all not been here, come. If you've been already, come back and have some fun. And it's what I say, it's edutaining, right? A little bit of education, a little bit of entertainment, but most importantly, together we are making a difference. It's not just a tagline or a mantra, it's who we are. It's how we are able to continue being successful for everybody. Any questions?
I don't see any questions, Nikki, but if there are any, I will forward them to you. Thank you so much. And guys, I am lucky enough to be on the parent advisory committee for the MAC that she was talking about. It is truly amazing what they're building right now. And I think we'll, in the fall, maybe we'll share on another webinar what the MAC entails and what services will be offered to our families. Thank you, Nikki.
Yes, I hope it was exciting for you guys to share some little preview, little tips of what's to come and what to expect and what you guys can enjoy.
Yes,
I love your
absolutely.
enthusiasm. You're awesome. I love it. It's
So
contagious.
I now get the pleasure of introducing Allison. I did forget, I'm sorry, I got so excited when we started that this is being recorded. And so we will have access to the recording later. If you know anyone who would like to watch it, who was not able to attend. Also, I put it in the chat box, but in case you didn't see it, all participants are muted. But if you have any questions, Allison would love to answer them even in real time. So just please put it in the chat box and I will monitor that. Allison has over 25 years of experience in financial planning. I personally have hired her to do our financial planning because she was such a breath of fresh air for me, because every financial planner I had ever met with, I felt like was trying to sell something. And that is not what Allison does. She is a fee-based financial planner and really has helped answer some of the tough questions for me as to what do I need to be doing to make sure that Ben will be taken care of even after I'm gone. Allison is the mother of 2 special needs children, so she absolutely knows where we are coming from, and she does specialize in financial planning for special needs families. Allison, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here today, and it is certainly my pleasure. Like Nikki, I am pretty enthusiastic, and I have a lot of passion for what I'm doing. I actually feel lucky that that I found this profession early on. I was just made for it. So as a parent, as she said, I have 2 kids that have special needs. I have one that is still a minor, and one that has crossed over into adulthood, and I have been doing this for 27 years. And what I'll say is I do this professionally, but I live it personally, and it wasn't necessarily easy, or even knowing everything that I know. There's a lot of challenges that come into play when it comes to planning for special needs. So we're going to talk about some of those things. It is my mission to keep things moving and end on time. So we'll get through and we're going to answer as many questions as we can. And I am just glad you're here today. So first things first, as far as getting started on special needs planners, special needs planning, what do you do? So first things first, we say work with a special needs planner to help you formulate your plan. And to Julie's point, there's a lot of planners out there. There's a lot of financial advisors out there. There's a lot of salespeople out there as it relates to planning. But what there aren't very many of are practices that are focused in special needs planning. And that's not just very many in Texas. There's not very many in the United States. It's not something that has really taken off, although it should. So just like I kind of use the analogy, if you have a heart problem, you go see a cardiologist, a neurologic problem, you go see a neurologist, you don't go to the PCP. It's kind of the same thing when you have a special needs loved one that may need care for the rest of their life. You need to think about these things as far as who you're coordinating, the future with, because a lot of your advisors that aren't nuanced in special needs make little mistakes they don't mean to. That could affect benefits for your child in the future. We're going to talk more about that. So another question that comes up is, what is the difference between a special needs planner and basically a special needs attorney, or an attorney that works with special needs? And so again, same thing. As it relates to an attorney that works with special needs families, they're adept in creating special needs trusts, first party, third party, guardianship concerns, things like that. And all attorneys, very smart, all go to law school, but they're nuanced in different areas of practice. So when it comes to special needs financial planning, you need a special needs planner and you need a special needs attorney. It's two. The attorney doesn't do the financial side, and the financial planner doesn't do the legal documents. So that's why you need two. So we say gather all the necessary planning documents. That's the start. So what do you already have in place? Wills, trust, all of your financial statements, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks, 403bs, pensions. We can just go on and on. But basically, any financial tool account that you have that you, A, may use for your own retirement, or B, may use to fund future care for your special needs child. These are the documents that we need to be gathering. Next thing, develop a letter of intent. And so this is a concept that some people have heard of and some people haven't. I call it a family love letter. And this is your mom or dad. You know all of these things about your special needs child. They're not necessarily written down. Your child is complex, but you know it backwards and forwards. In fact, you forgot more than anybody will ever know. But the thing is what if you're incapacitated tomorrow? What if you die? Does your spouse even know what you know? So if you're the primary caregiver of your special needs child, who else knows this information? And so this letter of intent, we actually have a template for this. And I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek, laughingly. It's 19 pages long, but it is a form-fillable PDF. So granted, you can create your own on a Word document. We don't recommend handwriting it because things change, all the time with our special needs kiddos. But this is everything about the kid. Where were they born? The county, the city, state. What were the details of their birth? What schools have they gone to? Names, address, and phone numbers of doctors. Lists of medications. We're talking about the diagnoses. Any primary diagnosis, dates of that, subsequent diagnosis. And some of our kids have the watch list of diagnosis because we have other diagnoses. You're prone to some of these other things that may happen. Religious preferences. You could just go on and on and on. But basically what you want this document to do is, if somebody was picking this up, it could be a family member that you've appointed as successor guardian. And hopefully we don't want our kids to become wards of the state because we didn't plan this. But that person is able to pick up the pieces and figure out where you've left out. So A lot of people don't have a letter of intent, and if you don't, that's okay. Just put it on your radar. It's not something that you're going to do overnight. You do it in sessions. You work on it a little bit. Here it's emotional because you're going back. I mean, if you have an older child, you're going back, and maybe it's a new diagnosis and it's emotional and it's still raw. So give yourself 90 days. Say, I'd like to have a letter of intent done in the next 90 days or 6 months or something like that, and kind of just work on that. And then, of course, on the letter of intent, it's great, but if you don't let somebody know that it exists or let somebody know where that is, that could be an issue. So definitely add that to your list. And so then we really want you to think about your vision and how you hope things will look for your own retirement as well as your special needs child. We talk, and sometimes in the cases of more than one family, special needs children, we talk to families all the time, and sometimes I have taught myself to say, "Oh, and do you have other children?" Because we're talking so much about the special needs child and what their future needs are and what their current needs are and all of these things. Like sometimes, oh yes, we have 4 other kids, you know. But we've got to look at the whole big picture, not just for the special needs child. And we're in our working years now, we're looking at things and how things are going to look for our future. You spend so many years working and saving and planning. The idea that we're going to have these golden years and they're going to be wonderful. But if we have a special needs child that's going to need care for the rest of their life, your retirement might look different than somebody else's, but there has to be some balance. So when we say think about your vision, pretend for a moment that you don't have a special needs child. What does that vision look like? Okay, so since you do have a special needs child, maybe we have to pare it back a little bit. But what I'm telling you is with proper planning, you can have both. Your special needs child can be taken care of and things are going well. You'll have respite care that you can do some of the things that you want to do in retirement and have that nice balance. But planning is important. Okay, so we talk about funding, and we spend a lot of time on this. This is something that I talk about in almost every single presentation that we do. How are we going to fund the future care? So if our kids have care needs that are ranging anywhere from, let's say their care needs are ranging anywhere from $2.5 to $4 million. Let's just put that as an example. How are we going to fund their future care? How are we going to fund 25 to 35 years in retirement? And then in addition to that, fund, millions of dollars worth of care if they're going to live 25 to 35 years post our death. So first things first, we want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. And this is a conversation that we have a lot, and it's a conversation, for most of the families that we serve don't fall into a category that they're really getting any assistance whatsoever. So what I'm saying is if your child's a minor and has special needs, clearly they have a disability, but your assets, your income are far too much to come out of the means-based test for SSI and Medicaid. So our kids don't get anything. They're not getting SSI and Medicaid. So SSI, I want to just talk about that for a minute. And Medicaid, SSI is a means-based program. And so even if your child is super, super disabled, they're under age 18, if you and your husband, if you're married, if you have assets more than $3,000, you have more than one house and more than one car, your child basically doesn't qualify for SSI and Medicaid, even though they're disabled. Okay. So the key to knowing this is that everything changes when your child turns 18. So when your child turns 18, the means-based test is based off of the child's assets, not yours. And so if you're single, the assets are $2,000, one house, one car. If you're married, it's $3,000, one house, one car. And so first things first, for SSI and Medicaid, it is important to make sure that your special needs child does not have more than $2,000 in their name. Okay, so this is all accounts basically, other than an ABLE account or a special needs trust. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But so right off the bat, when your child turns 18, if they have more than $2,000 in their name, they're not going to qualify for SSI and Medicaid. Okay, so 18 is the magic age. Doesn't matter if your child still lives with you, you still claim them on their on your taxes. It doesn't matter. So if you have a child that is coming around the bend, turning 18, you're going to want to call the Social Security Administration office nearest you and schedule a meeting for the month that they turn 18. So you can actually apply for SSI and Medicaid the month that they turn 18. It doesn't have to be after their actual birthday. Social Security, the Social Security Administration is not meeting face to face right now. They've been closed due to the pandemic. They are meeting by phone, and they are accepting online applications. So again, call a few months in advance, schedule that appointment by phone for the month that they turn 18. And I value the phone as opposed to the online application because you're actually getting a live representative that's working with you and kind of walking you through this process. So a couple of tips that I would put out there to you is if you're starting this journey and you're going to be applying for SSI and Medicaid, and right now SSI is $794 a month. So that is the monthly check that they will get as long as there's a fair share or a housing agreement in place. If you're going to be applying, what I suggest is ahead of time you contact your PCP and tell them I'm going to be applying for SSI for my loved one, and they're going to be requesting the records, and I would like to just see a copy of what you send when SSI requests these records. And you're going to want to look and see what they have on file for your child, because sometimes the records are wrong, and this is an example where we want the records to be right. All of the gory details of all of their history, we want it to paint a clear picture. Another thing that you can do is to know about the impairment guide for SSI. It's the Social Security Blue Book. Okay, it's the Social Security Blue Book. You can download this in a PDF. And basically, this Blue Book is the impairment guide that the Social Security Administration uses to identify if a person is disabled or not. And you can look the conditions up by name. Or by disorder, and it basically shows what has to be proven for that individual to be considered disabled. So that's kind of a book that you might want to look at. So another way that care is funded is through Social Security, Disability, and Medicare. So I want to pause for a second, and I want to just say that the difference, Social Security, Disability, and SSDI are all one and the same, okay? SSI and Medicaid is means-based. Social Security Disability is based off of working credits. So most of our kids don't have working credits, so they don't qualify for Social Security Disability. However, whenever you apply and your child turns 18, basically you also apply for your child to be a disabled adult child under the parent's record, okay? And so once that is approved, and they're also known as a DAC, once that is approved, when you or the child's father retires through the Social Security Administration or becomes disabled through the Social Security Administration, your child will then be eligible to 50% of that benefit amount. So up to the full retirement age of age 67. So 50%. So the mom or dad's benefit isn't reduced, but the disabled adult child's benefit will be 50% of the parents. Okay. And that's for as long as the parent lives. And upon death of the parent, then that child's benefit will be increased to 75% of what the parents was, and that will continue for the rest of their life. Okay. So the importance of everything I just told you is, in order to be considered a disabled adult child under a parent's record, the disability had to occur prior to age 22. Okay. It doesn't mean if your child is over 22 and you didn't know anything I just told you that you can't still apply for this. You can. You just have to show proof that the disability started prior to age 22. Okay. So I just wanted you to know the difference between SSDI and SSI. Once you're eligible for SSDI, then Medicare comes into play after 2 years. Okay, so another bucket, another place that you can have money that is not counted against you through the eyes of the Social Security Administration, that means-based test, is through a special needs trust. Okay, A special needs trust, you can have an unlimited amount of money in a special needs trust for their future care. There's a few types of special needs trusts, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes. Another way that you fund future care is through current life insurance and assets. So a lot of families, and this is kind of some of the analysis that we do, is figuring out how much do you need for retirement and how much is going to be left over, right? So, do you have enough current assets? And can we estimate your assets between now and the end of your life? Are you going to have enough current assets to pay for future care? And if the answer is no, then that's where some families fund their special needs trust with life insurance. Life insurance is also kind of an estate planning tactic because life insurance, especially for the affluent, because life insurance passes tax-free to heirs. Julie, I think we may have a few questions. Did we need to take some?
We were just chatting about the Blue Book. I was able to Google Social Security Blue Book, and it is the listing of impairments.
Yes.
So if you look up any of those terms, you will be able to find it.
Yes, it is really, really good. And like when my daughter was going through this process, I looked at it and she has a rare disorder and it wasn't in the book, but it was under like neurological disorders. And it basically spelled out what we had to prove. So it was clear. And so I think I'm a little extra on stuff like that. Like maybe you don't have to call the doctor and see what the records are. But you know what? I was glad I did because the records were incorrect and our doctor actually corrected them. And I was glad to understand what I needed to show, what those impairments were to prove that disability. So you don't have to do what I'm saying, but I think it's helpful because a lot of families have kids with hidden disabilities or moderate function. Some have high functioning autism or other things. So you have to be able to really prove what those limitations are when we have kids that have disabilities that aren't as definitive as some others. So an ABLE account, this is another account. So in the eyes of Social Security, you can have a special needs trust, you can have money in an ABLE account. So we're going to talk about those. But basically the bottom line is if it's outside of an ABLE account, if it's outside of a special needs trust, specifically a special needs trust, not just a quote unquote trust, those assets will be counted against that individual for the means-based test. So anything above the $2,000, if it's not a special needs trust or an ABLE account. Another thing I just want to mention, I want to mention here, so any person that may find themselves going through a divorce in the future, or if you already have, if you find yourself as a single mom and you're getting child support, it is important to note that child support, when and a lot of times in Texas, child support continues post age 18 for a special needs individual. That child support will be counted as income for that individual. So this is just a heads up and a warning that child support will need to be redirected to a special needs trust in order for your loved one to qualify for SSI and Medicaid. And you will have to work with a qualified attorney to take care of that. But that is a little known thing. It kind of slips through the cracks sometimes, and I've seen people in big overpayment situations to the Social Security Administration. Okay, so when do we need a special needs trust and or guardianship? So basically, a special needs trust is going to preserve future benefit eligibility while providing resources for your special needs child. There are first-party special needs trusts. There are third-party special needs trusts. So a first-party special needs trust would be needed if we're redirecting child support to a first-party special needs trust. Another reason why so these are the individual's assets, the individual with disability, their assets. Another reason why we would need a first-party special needs trust is in the example of a medical malpractice or some type of lawsuit where there was a settlement or something like that is specifically for that individual. That's a first-party trust. Now, the interesting thing on the first-party trust is there is a Medicaid payback. Okay, that's required in the eyes of Social Security, a Medicaid payback. So basically, if your loved one with disabilities dies, there's money in a special needs trust, there is a Medicaid payback. And so this is a long, convoluted calculation, and you can Google it. But like, so if you were to say how much, you can read, a Medicaid payback from a special needs trust and how it's calculated. But basically, the suggestion would be is not having huge sums of money in a Medicaid, payback situation. So it's just something to consider. So a third party special needs trust, this is how we leave money to our kids for the future, for their future care, and don't disqualify them from benefits. There is no Medicaid payback on that. A third party special needs trust is an example of if you set up your beneficiary third party special needs trust for the benefit of little Johnny, then it goes to his third party special needs trust upon your death, if it's a life insurance situation, or it could be it could be an investment account where you've set the beneficiary up that way. So what about if somebody leaves money to your child and it wasn't set up to go to a third party special needs trust? So again, you can work with a qualified attorney and we can get those things redirected to a trust. However, it would be a first party trust if it was directed directly to that child. So there's a lot of confusion with that, but just know that there's two different types of trust. One has a payback, one does not. Okay. Guardianship. So guardianship's a buzzword that we hear all the time. And should you have guardianship? Is there a such thing as partial guardianship? In Texas, we have something called supported decision making. What about a power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney? And all of these things are all on the table, and they're all good things to explore. So so some people definitively know that they need guardianship. I didn't. Okay. So I have healthcare power of attorney and power of attorney of my daughter. Definitely didn't need guardianship. So from a cognitive perspective, we weren't there. Her body doesn't cooperate, but her mind is fine. And so it just depends. I mean, is your loved one IDD, essentially an IQ of 70 or below? There's a whole bunch. It's not just IDD. There's a whole bunch of reasons why a person might need guardianship. Guardianship doesn't have to be forever. It could be temporary. It could be for a period of time. And we see this sometimes with our autism and ADHD kids, because a lot of those kids are, we're still hopeful and optimistic, the moderate and high functioning. But come 18, they're not there yet. So that might be an option. So again, you can apply for this 6 months prior to the child turning 18. You are taking away some of their rights, right to vote, right to get married, some of those things. A guardian ad litem is appointed for this guardianship process, and a qualified attorney, which we're happy to make referrals to, will be happy to go through the process with you and help determine what the best path is for you. So what we do suggest is don't do nothing, okay? And I suggest this for your neurotypical kids too. So at 18, they're usually going off to college. It is important to have a power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney for your kids that are going off to college. Basically, they get in an accident going to and from school or something like that. The hospitals don't have to talk to you if you don't have that in place. And so furthermore, whether it's supported decision making, guardianship, or these other documents, if your child is staying in the public school post age 18, some of them are staying in until 22, you're going to need these documents in place to be able to continue to interact with the school legally. The school would not have to include you in ARDS or any of the other meetings. I don't see schools being horrible. They try to work with everybody, but legally they wouldn't have to. So it's just, if you want to be involved with those things, make sure you get that going. Now, again, to anybody that's here that we're already past age 18, we didn't do this. It's not too late. You can still have those conversations. And again, these things that I'm talking about, these special needs trusts, the guardianship, and all of these things, these are where you're truly going to want to work with the professionals. And I know that everybody here, I know you guys are brilliant people. You have had a lot of success in life. You guys are smart people. Some of these things are just not things that we do it yourself because you mess them up. Okay. And just like the eligibility and the qualification for SSI. Okay, so kind of talking about who's going to care for my child when I'm gone. This is where developing a future care plan will answer some of these questions. And a future care plan it includes the future cost estimates of what are we looking at? Because some of it is so hard to wrap around the number. What does that number look like? How do we get there? How do we figure out what the number is? And then we work backwards from there. And some families don't have, they truly don't have. I've spoke to people in the last few weeks, multiple people that said, I wish we did have somebody in our family, but the behavior issues of my child are so horrible. We have no takers. We got nobody. We don't even know what's going to happen when we're gone. And so and some people, it's not a behavior issue. They simply just don't have family. They don't have someone. So really start thinking about these things. I say consider touring facilities as Brookwood, Marbridge Foundation, Daymark Living. We do have PDFs, and there's all kinds of facilities all across the state. And so what I'm not suggesting is how can you institutionalize your child? Okay, so the Texas waivers, the waivers and the interest lists. The point of most of these waivers is to keep the individual in the community and avoid institutions. Okay, but a lot of these facilities, they have transition programs, they have day programs, they have respite programs and other things like that. So in the beginning, when we were talking about thinking about how your vision looks for your retirement and what you want to do, some of these places may come into your equation, and it might not be full-time residential care, but the deal is some of these places have 5-year waiting lists. So when your child is 22 and you're like, I'm going to start looking at this, it could literally be 5 years before you get in any of those places. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid that 18 to 22 where we didn't think ahead and now we don't have a plan and your loved one is sitting around and with little interaction and no stimulation and those types of things. So here we say, make careful considerations before naming siblings. And this is so important. And it's important, and it's an issue that we hear all the time. His brother's going to take care of him. We're a very tight-knit family, and his brother wants to take care of him. And so that may be true in 1% of the cases or 5% of the cases. And I always just say, think back to where you were when you were in your early 20s or you're graduating high school. Did you want to go to college? Did you have a vision of getting married or having a family or having a home or having a fulfilling career, whatever those hopes and dreams were? And so if your parents died prematurely and you were 26 years old, could you have taken care of your sibling with special needs? And would you have wanted to? Or would it have been obligatory? And could there have been a rift because of the resentment that comes with that? So what we like the idea of is future. Let the sibling be the future trustee of the trust that's going to coordinate and be there and be a loving sibling that can just show up and just be that sibling instead of that caregiver and coordinate those decisions. So just think about those things. We've seen some real issues with that. Okay, so some of the things we talked about, some of the things on the government benefits and having assets in the right buckets and what can we do. So having your assets and the child's assets in the right buckets matter. Your assets, again, if they're over $3,000 and you're a married couple, you're not qualifying for SSI as long as your child is a minor. The child's assets, they can have assets in their name. It just cannot be over $2,000. We want to ensure that special needs families members' name is not set up as a beneficiary in any life insurance, investment, or bank accounts. This is a big deal. And because most people, what they do is they say on all of their accounts, if you're married, if I die, my spouse is the beneficiary. And if I die and my spouse is already dead and gone, then I'm going to name my children equally as beneficiary. And it's wrong on a lot of levels. And the reason it's wrong is because, first of all, if your children are minors and you do this and you die and they're still minors, that money sits in trust until they turn 18. And when they turn 18, then they get all of it. Most kids are not cut out to get large sums of money like this. So that is one reason. Whether you have a special needs child or you have neurotypical kids, that's one reason you don't do this. The second reason, clearly, is if you leave it to the named special needs individual, then it's going to them outright, and then they have more than the $2,000, and then they don't qualify for SSI and Medicaid. Okay, so there is a way to fix this, and the way to fix this is having a special needs trust. So instead of naming your named special needs child, John Smith, as a beneficiary, it's it's the supplemental needs trust for the benefit of John Smith. It's the third-party special needs trust for the benefit of John Smith. Or in some cases, you don't have your trust set up now. You are going to set up a trust under the confines of your will, but basically what it says is it's a testamentary trust. And it says it's not established right now, but when I die, a special needs trust is going to form for John. And we're going to set up the beneficiary as the testamentary special needs trust for the benefit of John under the will of mom and dad, whatever. So that is another way to go about doing it. So to my next point, we want to ensure well-meaning family members don't do this. So grandma and grandpa tend to have a lot of assets, and they love their grandkids, and they want to help. And sometimes grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, whoever, they keep their cards close to their chest. They don't necessarily tell you what they've done. And they don't know. They work with a regular financial advisor. They don't work with special needs. And grandma and grandpa said, we want to leave money to our grandson, John Smith. And he says, great, let's fill out this beneficiary form. And they write down John Smith. Okay, that's wrong. So if grandma and grandpa are going to be leaving money, or any family members are leaving money to your special needs child, you do need to have that third-party special needs trust already established, not a testamentary special needs trust. And so this is where I say, I'm not asking you to get in the weeds and kind of get in the business of grandma and grandpa and ask them about their assets and ask them all kinds of stuff that they don't want to talk about. But this is where you say, listen, we've really been doing some holistic special needs planning, and we've learned a common mistake people make with beneficiaries as it relates to leaving money to a special needs child, and we've learned how to do it right. We're assuming nothing. We're not assuming that you're leaving anything to John. However, if you are, our attorney has crafted this letter to let you know how the beneficiary must be set up. So that way it doesn't cause John to disqualify from other benefits in the future. So that's the conversation. So, and that's just really, really important. And it's a big common thing that we're seeing a lot. Okay. So moving on to ABLE accounts, we touched on these a few minutes ago. The beneficiary is an account owner. Income earned in the account is not taxable. Contributions are not deductible. It does not jeopardize SSI and Medicaid. But basically there's some contribution and distribution limits, and there's some rules on who qualifies for an ABLE account. So when it comes to who qualifies for an ABLE account, basically the disability had to start prior to age 26. You can put $15,000 a year into an ABLE account. Up to a total of $100,000 can be held in an ABLE account before the individual disqualifies from SSI. If the disabled individual is working, they can have an additional $12,490 in that account. This is cool. It's under the tax code 529A. Okay, so we've heard of 529s, and typically we hear them of 529C for college. Okay, so 529A is for achieving a better life for an individual with disability. So basically, if the expense, and I'm going to go over what you can and can't pay for in just a moment, but basically in an ABLE account, if the expense can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, then it's an allowable expense, as opposed to a 529C is just for college. A 529A could pay for college. It could pay for tutoring and medical expenses and housing and food and shelter. I mean, it can just pay for a ton of things. So some families ask me, they say, we already have a 529C for our disabled child. Should we convert it to a 529A? And the answer is maybe. So the answer is you can, but you can only do it $15,000 a year. Okay. Because that's the max contribution. So if you've got $100,000 and a C, you need to get going on it because you can only do $15,000 a year. The other thought is too that if you have other children, the 529C, you, mom and dad, are the account owner. Okay, so when we go to apply for SSI, that is the asset of the parent, not the asset of the beneficiary. So even if your special needs child is the beneficiary, the 529C still can make a distribution for college, but it cannot make a distribution for room and board. That would disqualify for SSI. So we're kind of getting in the weeds, but some of these things matter. So A, the 529C, you can change the beneficiary to your other child that may not have enough to go to college in their fund, or B, you can convert it to an ABLE account. Or C, you can keep it for your disabled child, but only disperse it for higher education if your child is going to college. If they're not going to college, or the jury's out and maybe no, then you probably should convert it to an ABLE account. Okay, so an ABLE account has tax-free growth and investments that can be changed by the participant twice a year. We did talk about the rollovers. And so here's the thing. We talked about that Medicaid payback. Sometimes they call it a clawback or a drawback or a Medicaid payback. So on the ABLE account, there is definitely a Medicaid payback on the ABLE account. So it depends on how you want to do this. Like for instance, we definitely have an ABLE account for our daughter, but the reason you might need an ABLE account and a special needs trust, because I get that question all the time. If I can have an unlimited amount of money in a third-party special needs trust, why should I also have an ABLE account? And the answer is that you can pay for things out of an ABLE account that you can't out of a trust. And mainly, and a big expense for most people is room and board, basically food and shelter, monthly rent, monthly mortgage, monthly food and shelter you can pay for out of an ABLE account, and you cannot pay for that out of a special needs trust. So that begs the question, and this is it is a gray area. So on a special needs trust, if we have how are we paying for the future care of our loved one in a special needs trust if we can't pay for room and board or monthly food and shelter out of a special needs trust? And the reason why is, first off, SSI is designed to pay for food and shelter. So they expect you, if you're getting SSI, to pay for food and shelter. And secondly, when it comes to paying for the food and shelter, again, the debt service, the monthly rent, you can't pay. But so the question is if you're in a place like Brookwood or Marbridge or any of these other facilities, can I pay for the care out of that special needs trust, the monthly care out of that special needs trust? And the answer is it depends on how the facility bills. It depends if they call it room and board, and then that answer is no. Or if it's billed under medical, then the answer is yes. So here's just a couple, a few of the things that we talked about as to what the ABLE account can pay for. And then here is kind of a long list of some things that a special needs trust can pay for. And I don't know if you can see my mouse, but basically, it's just a long list of what a special needs trust can pay for. A special needs trust can buy a house or have real property, but just not do that monthly debt service is the deal. Because we do have families that say, okay, well, we want the trust to buy a house, or we inherited the house next door after my mother passed away, and we would like to have some kind of semi-independent living arrangements or create our own group home. We have a lot of families that want to do those types of things, and that is possible through that. Okay, so we hit on this already, and I'm gonna just keep it moving. We're just about out of time, but these are some things that the special needs trust can't pay for. A couple of things that I want to hit on before we wrap up for today is some post-high school options. We've talked about some different things, but I'm going to move to transition just for a second, really quick. These are some programs. We're not endorsing anything, necessarily good, bad, or indifferent, but these are some programs post-high school that you might want to check out that may be a good fit for your child. And starting earlier is a good thing. So we want to see, are you leaving the school at 18? Is it going to be 22? Are any of these programs a good fit for you? But there is a ton of programs out there. Some of them are transition, some of them are certificate, some of them are just life type skills, but they're all worth checking out. They're all pretty good. So I wanted to put that out there. Think about accommodations, ahead of time. So if you've got a kid in high school that's got accommodations, they got an IEP, they got a 504, those don't transfer to higher education institutions. So you might want to look at some neuropsych testing that should be updated in the last 3 to 5 years if you're looking to get accommodations for SAT or ACT if you have a child that will be moving forward with those. I mean, we do have a lot of families that have kids with disabilities that have very high IQ scores, and all across the board. So just because they have a disability doesn't mean that, they might not, where they might be going in the future. So I just wanted to put that out there. These accommodations are really, really important to their success, and each of the schools have different requirements and a different path forward on how you have to request accommodations, how old the testing has to be, how old the testing that they will accept. So just be thinking about that early. So we want that to be on your radar. And then of course, reasonable accommodations through work. So I'm going to rush through a couple more things because I think that this is super, super important. For our kids with disabilities, there are a lot of programs out there through the Texas Workforce Solutions and Texas Workforce Commissions. So basically the pre-employment transition services, this is one I'm going to touch on it very briefly. Pre-ETS, they also called us. And basically here's the services that they do. And the individual has to have a disability. They need to be ages 14 to 22, but there are all kinds of resources out there through this pre-ETS service. You can coordinate. Most of the schools, the public schools, have coordinators. Your private school may not, but we have some contact information on these. There is a summer earn and learn program. And the kids get $10 an hour. It's a really good program. You might want to check out. The applications are filling up. They do have slots available right now for the summer. So just check that out. And that is through Texas Workforce Solutions. And we're going to put this out there, but this is just some websites of other things as far as transitioning, some really good websites that you might want to check out that we have found along the way. And then I just want to talk very briefly about the vocational rehab. So vocational rehab is through the Texas Workforce Commission. And so they have big budgets. They have state and federally funded dollars. This is all about an individual with disabilities ages 14 to 22 finding competitive employment. So they do all kinds of assessments as a parent that I have paid thousands and thousands of dollars. They've done assessments that I've paid $5,000 for. But really assessing your child is an individualized program to figure out where your child is, what are their deficits, what are their impediments to employment, and how do we close those gaps? And then they put training programs in place to help your child become more employable, and also how can they keep their job? Because some of our kids are explosive, they're impulsive, maybe they have anger issues or things like that. And any of those things are things that they can address in this program. So again, these services are out there. They're good services, and think about engaging on these. I again have engaged these for both of my kids, and I've been very, very impressed. So historically, there has been some bad press on these that they have a high turnover rate of employees. They don't call you back. My counselor was not smart, whatever. But they have heard people's complaints, and they have really put some supports in place to change that. And I personally think it's going pretty well. And I have some really great contacts. So if you're trying to explore these with your kids and you're running into a brick wall, if you want to reach out to me, I can definitely put you in touch with the right people for sure. So we've talked about a lot of things today. We hit on like a million different topics. Most of them are on this page. We kind of touched on the tip of the iceberg on some of these. We definitely have webinars on all of these topics. So when you get your email later today with the recording, feel free to find our YouTube channel and subscribe to that, and you can see some of the other topics out there that might be relevant to you and your unique situation and your family. So having said that, that's all I have got for today. I think we did go 2 minutes over, Julie, and I apologize for that. I don't like going over, but I would love to open it up to any questions or any thoughts that anybody has.
So Allison, the year of 2020, I've done a fair number of these webinars, and it's still always amazing to me how I learn something new every single time, even if it's a topic that I've already seen a webinar on already. I don't see any questions.
Sure.
So I just want to share one more thing, which is Allison and I have been working together remotely through Zoom, and I thought it has gone very smoothly, and it's been extremely convenient for us to work with you that way. And so just letting all of you know that even though she is in Sugarland, that we have found that process to be smooth. So thank you so much for coming here today.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. And we actually serve clients all across the United States. And the interesting thing is how Zoom, changed the way we do things. I mean, the pandemic changed the way that we do things, but the funny thing that we found is that it actually is way more convenient for special needs families to meet by Zoom as opposed to face to face, because we don't have to have special caregivers and all of those types of things. But we're really passionate. I'm very, very passionate about what we do and how we do it. And it's important to me to get these educational things out there to families. Because like I said, I do this for a living, and I'm just telling you, it was hard. It was unnecessarily difficult, and anything I can do to help you along your journey to make this a little bit easier, I'm certainly happy to do that. So, Julie and team, thank you so much for having me today. I definitely appreciate it, and certainly happy to support you guys again in the future.
Sure. We have one last minute question here. Let's see. My boys got diagnosed with autism a couple of years ago. What is your recommendation of where to start with them on benefits or long-term financial planning? If you are new to the district, there are some resources that Michelle can hook you up with. We can hook you up on a little bit of help to get you on all of the lists that you need to be on. Allison, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, so I would say that this is very individualized, and I'm happy to one off with anybody, because whenever we talk about holistic planning, what we do is we really talk to a person about what have you done so far, what's important. We got to do a lot of listening, because what might be important to you as a mom might not be important to Julie at all. And so when we make our recommendations, we can certainly help you align your steps, but having an understanding of where you've already been and where you hope to go will help us to help you align your steps. I know that sounds crazy, but that's truly what holistic is.
Thank you, Allison, again.
Yes, thank you so much. And I hope you guys all have a great day.
Bye.
Bye now.